So once again, I'm with my boy Sai, and we're going to be talking about Emu. But this time, it's really warranted because we finally got to see what Emu looks like and sounds like in the anime. You know, recently in that episode where he kills, or she kills Cobra. So now that we have all this information, I kind of want to go over all the stuff that we've talked about with Emu so far. Because, you know, there's plenty of videos that we've made talking about Emu. This is going to be another one. But like I said, we can go over what we've talked about before and how it might be true now. So the first thing is Emu's voice. I don't want to influence your decision, but what do you think about Emu's voice?
Yeah, Emu's voice, man. I love the robotic sound of it. You can't really distinguish the gender, right? Like, it's a weird mix of, like, oh, you could see a guy, you could see a girl. Personally, I would even be happy if this is their real voice. Like, even if we get the unsilhouetted version of Emu, I'd be cool if this is just what they sound like in general. But base level, though, it's very robotic, which I think makes sense, too, considering the fact that during the Void Century, we learned that the Ancient Kingdom had technology better than Egghead. So it's like, oh, like, maybe they had voice changers back then. Maybe Emu has, I don't know, some mechanical implants, you know? I think that'd be pretty cool. It doesn't explain their figure though, because they still are shaped really weirdly. But yeah, the voice is pretty sick.
I agree. It would be cool if that's just their voice and that's what they always sound like. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I mean, if they're like in their Zoan form, then yeah, sure. But base form, maybe, maybe not. But I'm inclined to think that Emu is a woman now. I mean, we've always been talking about that, at least that I have. But the voice, I think, sealed the deal. And it almost makes me think that that's why they made Emu's voice distorted like that. Because it just straight up sounds like a woman. So they're trying to, like, not, you know. I mean, of course, that might not be the case. But I think it is.
We've also talked about a lot of theories about Emu being Lily even, right? Like, oh, maybe Emu has a Lily's body or something of the sort. And the thing with Emu's voice, like, there's so many things you could draw from it. And another thing it reminds me of, outside of it being robotic, is that this sounds like somebody being possessed. So maybe if that's the case with Emu, maybe Emu is a woman, maybe it's a Lily. You know, maybe Emu's soul is possessing Lily. There's so many ways you could spin this. And it's kind of crazy because in the latest episode of One Piece, which obviously the anime isn't, like, quote, canon necessarily, but we got more shots of their flower room, and the flowers you see in the room, it's confirmed not to be lilies, which is actually that was a big theory back in the day. Like, oh, what flowers does Emu have, right?
They're chrysanthemums, or however you say it, right?
Yeah,
chrysanthemums.
Like it's hard to tell because it's like black and white, and you know the shots are very saturated. They could be that. It could be even tulips. But lilies is definitely out of the question at this point. Now that we have like more shots of the room. Unless the anime just flubs it, right? There's also that possibility.
So, speaking of Emu in the flower room, the size of Emu. I mean, I know it was always there, but it was made more apparent now, I think. It's very small, right?
Yeah. Emu is very, very dainty. I feel like if you saw an emu across the street, you'd probably like pick on him. You'd probably push him down the stairs or something. Yeah, Emu's really small, but when they transform, they're big. They were like the biggest monster transformation out of the Gorosei.
Yeah, we could get into that now, but I just want to say that we're describing the traits of a woman here. But anyway, so yeah, you are right. Emu's transformation is huge. But not only is it huge, now it seems even bigger than what is even implied in the anime, given how big the Gorosei were in their transformed states at Egghead, right?
Oh yeah, like dude, the Gorosei were bigger than Emmet. Like in that one double spread, like dude, Emmet was like a little kid in comparison to all the Gorosei jumping off the coast of Egghead. So yeah, like Emu is a massive thing, and we didn't really get this context that well in the manga, but in the anime they showed that, you know, in one scene Emu's like, you know, climbing down the stairs, you see the hands, and then the next minute when they're chasing Sabo and Cobra, they're like bouncing up and down like Pac-Man. And it's like, yo, like where did the hands go? Where are the feet, you know? Like what is this thing?
Yeah, so the anime did it very well. Great sequence, I gotta put that out there. And still don't know if that solidifies that it's a dragon, because in the last Emu video we talked about, you know, possibly being like a Western style dragon. When Emu does eat the fire, it still holds up. I would say it looks
Yeah.
even more Dragon-esque in the anime sequence than it does in the manga panel. But the other directions and angles that we see of it makes it look just, like an ambiguous monster. Also with its tail. It could be the dragon tail, or it could be like a devil tail, or I don't know, some kind of unique creature. But Oda doesn't really do, unique stuff like that. That's not really a knock on him. He's very, adaptive, So given that the Gorosei are all known yokais, I assume Imu will follow suit with that to some extent.
Yeah, Oda is the type of guy that he would watch like a movie or read an article or see a cool story, and then he'd twist it and bring it into One Piece. I mean, that's true for everything we've seen, right? Even Gear 5th. Oda said the main inspiration was Tom and Jerry. I am leaning towards the cartoon devil aspect of Imu more now that we have that anime episode where they're bouncing up and down, because it does remind me of Luffy when he's fighting Rob Lucci. Luffy bounces into the ground, then he jumps up and it's just a giant head trying to chomp him down. That's kind of what that scene reminded me of, watching Imu chase Sabo and Cobra. And it's like, yeah, out of Oda's interview talking about Tom and Jerry, he said the hard part about drawing Luffy's Gear 5th fights is that Luffy is the only one doing shenanigans. He said the reason why Tom and Jerry works is because you have two of them, and they can both do the same thing. So it's like, if Imu is a cartoon devil, if Imu has, abilities like Luffy, but just darker, then I think that could fit really well. And that could be I wouldn't say one of the greatest fights in anime, but it would be one of the most unique fights.
I mean, it would be fun for sure, Toon Force people going at it in a world where only they have that ability. Yeah, that would be really interesting. But to play devil's advocate to Imu appearing to be cartoony and devilish in this episode, while they do for sure. And I was thinking that at first when I saw it. I was like, that's really weird the way that Imu looks. And then I was thinking, am I reading too much into it? And then I was looking at the Gorosei. And the Gorosei are similar kind of to Imu in this sequence, in the way that they're depicted. And I, comparing what the Gorosei's silhouette looks like in this episode to what they actually look like in the manga, and it's like, if we do that for Imu, then things are going to be drastically different,
Oh, 100%. Dude, all of the Gorosei looked so goofy in that episode, and even in the manga they did too, right? But the thing with the manga, at least, is that we could kind of pick out what they were. There was nobody out there who got 5 for 5, but I saw some people get the Itsumare one, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Bakotsu, he just looked goofy. Jupiter the giant worm, he looked really goofy. And that's kind of how it is. And it makes me wonder, since Sabo was in that room, obviously he saw what they are. I wonder if we'll ever get a scene where when Sabo meets Luffy or meets Bonnie or somebody else, he's like, hey, by the way, Imu looks like this. He could probably draw it out, right? He could draw word for word and description for description what Imu looks like. And that's the craziest part. They're silhouetted to us, but Sabo saw them.
So to reverse devil advocate, back to it supporting the devil theory.
Yeah.
Sabo says, in this sequence, oh, I didn't know I was in hell. I'm paraphrasing, but he says something like that. So maybe he said that for a reason. Oh, Imu's the freaking devil.
Yeah, he looks up there and he just sees a devil on a throne, which is very, very typical, right?
Yeah.
When you think of all depictions of the devil, he's always sitting on his throne.
So yet again, we're going to be talking about Imu's possible true form. Got my boy Sai with me. We've made quite a few videos about Imu already.
Just at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'm going to make a whole just compilation video of the Imu stuff that we've done so far. But in this video, it's different, promise, because we're once again reacting to a Dawn and Dusk video. Check out Dawn and Dusk if you haven't already. Great channel, deep cut Japanese One Piece stuff. But the long and the short of it is that Imu's true form, whether it is devil fruit or some kind of other thing that Imu and the Gorosei are doing with possible yokais or demon forms or whatever, is like a dragon or a demonic type of dragon, and more so resembles the type of dragon that we saw in Punk Hazard, which, aside from the other stuff that we've talked about throughout the last year or so, I've always kind of thought that. Because the main thing, I guess, for me is just the way that Imu's transformation looks in that chapter when Sabo is it like in the throne room and launches that fire at Emu and like Emu eats it. I always thought that silhouetted mouth looked like the mouth of the big like red orange dragon from Punk Hazard. And Dawn and Dusk has like those two panels side by side, and it just makes me think that even more at this point. I know that you, Sai, are not really 100% on board with Emu being a dragon, but...
Oh, no, whoa, I'm 100%. I like this.
Oh, you're back on? All right, cool.
No, yeah. I mean, hey, it depends on what side of the bed I wake up on, but I go between Emu being akin to Luffy and then Emu being an actual Western dragon, which is what we're referring to here. Because I like both theories a lot.
Yeah, because also, and we'll get into this, but it's just the word dragon. It's thrown around so much in this series that
Celestial dragon.
It has to end with Emu being something like that, or at least the controlling party being a dragon of some sort. But there's usually like multiple depictions of dragons too, which is interesting in One Piece. We've got, like we've been talking about, the Western one with the wings, and then there's the Eastern one, the Serpent type that doesn't have wings.
Yeah, and what's kind of cool about this distinction too is that the Celestial Dragons have shown an affinity towards the dragons, the Western dragons that we saw at Punk Hazard. Because if you go to the data books, the Vivre cards, we actually learn that the red dragon that we saw at Punk Hazard is named number 13. And there's two different versions of this. In the manga, Brownbeard says that the Celestial Dragons loved that dragon so much, they took a liking to it, that they gave it that name. But they're not too sure like why or how. But if you go to the Vivre card, there's like another piece of information that kind of like fights against this, which is kind of weird, right? Manga versus Vivre card. But the Vivre card says that Dr. Vegapunk named the dragon number 13. So it's a weird toss-up with this, but either way, the Celestial Dragons do like Western dragons a lot. And going to some One Piece anime filler, and this is early filler, so you know Oda was definitely involved back in the day, like in 2005, but one of the first filler arcs we had in One Piece had to do with the Straw Hats encountering what is called a Millennium Dragon, which is a Western dragon that has like this immense power. And you know Oda loves his dragons at this point, right? Like Western versus Eastern. I'm excited to see what Oda's cooking up here. And I think there is a reason why the Celestial Dragons are named dragons at the end of the day. I think Emu could be what we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, I mean, also because, you know, they are called the Celestial Dragons. So, you know, it makes sense to name, like, your faction
at least
after,
one of them.
You know, what you are.
Yeah, there's got to be at least one dragon in the group, right? They can't all be, like, yokai.
I mean, there is one dragon in the group of the good guys, Luffy's father. Let's get into him, because... There's also seems to be like two dragons kind of going on in this series at points. Like in Wano, you know, we had Kaido, and then there was Momonosuke, the good and the bad, or just two. You needed one to, I don't know, maybe go against the other. Punk Hazard, there was also two dragons. So it's possible that what's going on here in the big, broader spectrum of things is that Emu is the one big dragon, and then we have the other dragon, you know, trying to stop that dragon, who is Dragon, Monkey D. Dragon. Still not sure why he has that name. I always assumed it was like a...
crazy, huh?
Yeah, I always assumed he named himself that, but I guess he didn't. I guess Garp named him that?
Yeah, but like, and then like, you know, the names are spelled out in the katakana, so it's like, it's kind of interesting. It's like, so he's named Dragon, but in the verse, do they see him and think of a dragon, or is it just like, oh, that's a name, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up.
Word.
Dawn and Dusk also brings that up too, how you said the dragon's name is always written in katakana. For anyone who's a little confused by that, in Japanese, there's like multiple forms of their writing, of course. And then whenever you see like those big looking characters that mean like a lot of things, that's like kanji. And in One Piece, they do use the kanji to represent dragons like Ryu. But then with dragon, his is just written out like dragon. You know, it's not spelled like Ryu, which is interesting.
We have had like one instance in the series where they kind of broke the fourth wall and they actually gave us like a definition based off of another language, and that was with the Nox Pirates with Pedro, where he was like, yeah, Nox means you know, the dawn before the dusk, or I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but it's like, okay, like Nox is an actual real world word that's not Japanese that they brought into the series and gave an explanation to. So I kind of wonder if that's going to happen for Dragon eventually. Like maybe Garp comes out, he's like, yeah, I named him Dragon because I was thinking of actual dragons. Like we're not too sure how that's going to work out, but it feels very intentional that we have Garp, Dragon, and then Monkey as first names.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Another thing about Dragon is his ship, the Wind Grandma. I guess that sounds cooler in Japanese.
Yeah, it sounds way better in Japanese. In English, we're just thinking about like a windy grandma, you know, grandma's getting blown away.
It's like a black dragon. I mean, it's kind of serpenty throughout the boat, but like the head of it, the stern or whatever you call it, is like a cool looking dragon. Something I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Emu ultimately looks like. Another thing is that the flag, apparently it's changed over the years. Originally it was like a sword, and then it changed into that sword going into a dragon's head. And it just looks interesting. It looks monstery. If you flip it upside down, it could represent a crown with the sword going through it. I don't know, but what I'm getting at is that this could be hinting at Emu's true form, and that maybe Dragon even knows that Emu has a true form, and he's known this whole time. I mean, he's pretty silent when Ivankov is talking about that stuff with Sabo, but...
Yeah, he didn't say much, huh? They were like, hey, by the way, you know, Emu Narona existed in the past, and then Dragon's just hitting us with a ... He doesn't really speak much about it. He did seem pretty shocked that they existed, but... like, what more does he know, right? We don't know anything about Dragon's time spent in the Navy. Like, we don't even know his relationship to Akainu or any of the other admirals. He's just, hey, he worked with the Navy for a little bit, he quit, he became a revolutionary, and that's about it. Like, he is a character who is quite literally still shrouded in mystery, even 1,000 chapters deep.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Him and Mihawk. Mihawk also could have some kind of potential connection to Emu. We won't get too much into that, but just remember, guys, Mihawk might have a connection there.
Mihawk. And one thing I want to point out too, one small thing I want to add in, is that maybe the Giants also know a little bit about Emu. So one line that the Giants dropped a long time ago, back at the very end of Little Garden, when they were defeating the giant goldfish, they used their attack, the Hakuoku Sovereignty, and they said that this attack, the only thing it can't pierce is the blood-soaked serpent, which it's a phrase that still lingers with the community to this very day. And a lot of people believe that they were talking about the red line and how they can't break the red line, and that will eventually be one of Luffy's goals. But also another way to spin this is that maybe, since serpents and dragons are viewed in the same light, maybe they were talking about Emu or somebody from the world government.
Yeah, it could be a double entendre as well, since, you know, it's kind of implied that Emu constructed the red line to be the way that it is.
Yeah.
It could be both. It's like, you know, breaking the red line and the person who made it. That would be, I would have put it past Oda. He does that stuff.
Yeah, there's something with dragons, man. And then you go back to like Zoro's one-shot, not Zoro's one-shot, the Ryuma one-shot, where the main villain was a Western dragon as well. In a Western town too, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, glad you brought that up. I forgot about that. What is that? Like, what is the Western dragon in the One Piece world? Because apparently it's like a thing that exists, but it doesn't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, based on the backstory we got in the One Piece filler, which, you know, I'm kind of using that as a headcanon right now, but in the One Piece filler, they said that the Millennium Dragons just died off and they went extinct hundreds of years ago. And they even have their own island that is hidden from the world. So maybe that's the same case here. Maybe there actually existed dragons in the past and they all just died out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that has to be the case because they were a thing for sure, which is
and
interesting.
It's not the most insane thing to think about as well, since the ancient kingdom apparently had technology so advanced it puts Vegapunk to shame. So if we go back like 900 years, you know, if Western dragons were just flying around willy-nilly, I think that'd be fine. Like it wouldn't suspend the imagination too much.
Oh, that would be a cool visual to see. Yeah.
Dragons versus robots.
That is
exactly like what we saw at the beginning of Egghead Island.
There you go. I guess there's one more thing that we could talk about. I'll try to go through this as easily as I can. So in the Dawn and Dusk video, they ultimately connect Emu to being the embodiment of the North Star. Now, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff here. It also includes how the Gorosei are all connected to this through a pentagram and a star, which we've also talked about before. But long story short, back in the day, during the Egyptian times, the North Star was in a different location than it is now because of the way the world's axis tilts and over time and whatnot. But it was a part of the Draco Constellation, which apparently Dawn and Dusk thinks Emu is based off of, or at least Oda based a part of Imu off of that. And if you look at like an illustration of what the Draco Constellation looks like, it's like a serpent dragon, but its tongue is like an arrow. And that's really interesting because we saw that before with Imu back in that sequence when Sabo was firing the fire and Cobra wound up getting stabbed with that thing. Now, we still don't know what it is. I thought that it was one of the other Gorosei at the time, like using their tail to kill Cobra, but now it seems like this might belong to Imu, like more so than anything. And it's not even Imu's tail, it might be Imu's tongue. What do you think about that?
I don't mind that at all. I think the tongue works, the tail works too if he's a dragon. And yeah, I mean, dragons are sharp-tongued. I mean, bringing it back, people do look at dragons and serpents pretty similarly. So, you know, people say that serpents usually have really sharp tongues. So I think that could work.
So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Imu, very likely to be some kind of demonic dragon, Western-looking dragon to some extent. Other than that, the powers could be, like we've been talking about for a very long time, water manipulation, possibly. Hey guys, got my boy Sai with me as always, and we're gonna be looking at Lunapian Art, great channel on YouTube. If you're looking for some super deep cut, hardcore Japanese to English One Piece content, this guy's the master of it. But he brought up a really interesting theory that I want to go over with Sai, and it's what Imu's abilities could be. Not the devil fruit, we talked about that many times. Still kind of lines up like a devil dragon, something like that. But what the actual abilities are themselves, where they come from, and what Imu's weakness is. And it really makes sense, and it's kind of been staring me in the face this whole time. I feel like an idiot for not figuring it out. But anyway, so as we know, Imu is shrouded in darkness and is always at Mary Joie, never leaves Mary Joie for some reason, always has the Gorosei or somebody else doing their bidding. And what if it's because Imu cannot go into the sunlight?
I like that. I've thought about that a couple of times, but I never really thought about it legitimately. But now that you say it, it's like, yeah, that could make sense because there's such a heavy themology in One Piece with sun versus darkness, and now we have like the D clan, which is like the half moon clan, and it's like, okay, like what's going on here, right? Something about the sun and the moon being polar opposites has really been sparking this all up. And yeah, like if Imu, like you said, can't go outside, then it would bring more emphasis on Luffy bringing the dawn, because that is the sunlight, right? Maybe that's the whole thing here. It's been staring us, like you said, right in the face.
And it's sun god Nika, which we've talked about many times. It's like Luffy doesn't really have any kind of sun abilities, but maybe they'll come later. But it's very likely why Imu fears Joy Boy, because when his haki was released from Emmeth's Knot, knocked the Gorosei out, Imu was scared, shook. And it's because, oh no, my absolute weakness. And that probably goes into why they were trying to erase the fruit and the legend of Nika forever. Not necessarily just because he's a liberator and was trying to take down their whole fascist regime, but because he is just the direct weakness to Imu. And I think we have already seen this before. Now, as we talked about many times before, actually Dax Sake, our boy, made a video recently about how most of the villains that we've seen in One Piece already are like just showing us what Imu is, or how they parallel or relate to Imu in some way. One of the biggest ones is Enel. And remember, Enel was just wiping up everybody. He had control, he was just too busted, but then he ran into Luffy, couldn't do anything. Luffy's rubber fruit at the time just nullified everything Enel was about. And that might be what's going on with Imu and Sun God Nika. Like the Sun God Nika fruit is the direct weakness to what Imu is. Like, what do you think? Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And there's so many parallels here, right? Enel seeing himself as a god, Enel having the Arc Maxim, which people are saying is like the weapon that destroyed Leloucia, right? If you compare the panels side by side when they got destroyed, or when Enel used his crazy attack that destroyed Fairy Verth, or not Fairy Verth, I'm sorry, the Verth that was up in the sky, it looks identical. So I do think Enel will be some sort of parallel to Imu, and that Luffy will be this natural weakness, which I guess now begs the question, if Luffy is the natural weakness to Imu, how is this going to be a crazy fight? Because I love Enel versus Luffy, but it was definitely one-sided. So I'm wondering if now there will be some sort of hack against the sun that Imu is able to utilize. Like a weird example would be like the solar eclipse in Avatar, right? Like, will there be some sort of event where something's blocking the sun and that's how Imu goes outside for the first time? Because that'd be kind of sick. Like just an event that everybody can witness. They look up and they're like, wait, the sun's gone. And then of course Luffy's gonna have to do something about that. That'd be pretty cool.
That I didn't think about that. I was thinking she's just somehow just keep Luffy indoors. You make a lot more sense with just blacking out the sun or making it so that it's just nighttime or something, which seems, I guess, simpler, more plausible. But now I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, okay, so this is Imu. She's darkness or can't go out. Why? It could be what the ability of her devil fruit is or where it comes from. So it's essentially like Blackbeard's devil fruit. Like Blackbeard has the darkness logia. And what I'm about to say here maybe is not like what is on Viz, but this is what like essentially the direct Japanese translation for what Blackbeard says. He says, darkness, the gravity of it pulls in the essence of all devil fruit users. Against every ability user in the world, he's gained an unblockable power. And that was always interesting. Like, how does that work for Blackbeard? Like, how is he able to nullify the abilities? Because this was before Haki was like fleshed out. Like, I was actually rereading that chapter today. Like, I think it was like 441 when Blackbeard goes against Ace, and he's like, "Oh, I bet that's the first time you've been hit with a real punch in a while." And I was like, "Oh, this is definitely before Haki." Because like, yeah, now everybody has Haki. Devil fruits don't really mean much anymore other than just having cool abilities. But it's like that power could be an analog to what Imu has. Maybe it's just the more advanced version of it because, you know, as we've talked about many times, there's like levels to the devil fruits, like, you know, Aces and Akiinu's, the weight manipulating devil fruits, the ice devil fruits, the other manipulation devil fruits like that all have levels to them. They get better and better. It could be something like that. And this is really jumping into just wild theories. There's not really much that I know I can go off of, or even Luna PN art really went much into it, but something with the dragon devil has some kind of like darkness or void emptiness power to it. And I know it goes back to that mural on the Atom Tree, because we see like that big dragon like thing in what is implied to be the before the Void Century, right? Or at least is it like the right side of the mural? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the right side might be the Serpent. The left side I think might be Imu, but like I said, that's like still a heavily debated topic right there.
Yeah, I mean the left side for sure seems like the Void Century War, and that is Imu grabbing the sun. But it's like, what is the dragon devil thing? Is that what led to Imu's devil fruit? The way that like Sun God Nika himself, if he was a real person, which seems possible, led to that fruit, obviously. Yeah. And maybe that's even why Sun God Nika birthed in the first place, because there needed to be like something to fight against the dragon devil or the devil dragon or something. And that also goes into like devil fruits. And another thing that Luna PN brought up is like, this is all devil abilities. Like having the ability to birth the devil fruits is also in the same realm as giving and taking the powers, because we've seen that Imu can do that. Can give the Gorosei powers, or at least it's heavily implied, since she like hit Saturn with the Ashwallen, you know, from Elbaf from Bleach, and then also the arrow that she stabbed Cobra with is like Gunko's power, and it's very likely that she gave Gunko that ability, possibly. We're going to be talking about Gunko in the next video too. I've got a juicy theory about her, but also how Gunko can activate the abyss, the summoning circle. That's like a given power. It's not like, I don't think anybody could do that, right? It just seems like this is all coming from Imu, and Imu's fruit or just whatever inherent crazy power that this devil magic comes from might come from this dragon that once existed or something like that. Still, so many questions. I just don't know. And then one more thing. It's just that Imu cuts up back during the Reverie in like 900 something in the early 900 chapters. she cuts up the pictures of Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi. And we're wondering, oh, it totally makes sense why she'd cut up Luffy. Shirahoshi will go in towards the end of the video. But why would she cut up Blackbeard? I mean, he's a D, but like he's not, warrior of liberation, sun god. It's like, oh, is it because of his devil fruit or is it power? Something like that.
Yeah, that could be it. Maybe back in the day, there was a Blackbeard equivalent, right? Because we know that Luffy is Joy Boy, Nika, like that. Those are his equivalents in the past. So maybe Blackbeard had another one as well. Maybe Blackbeard is similar to Luffy, where maybe instead of Joy Boy, there's like a Frown Boy out there. But 900 years ago, yeah, silly name, but like, they gave Imu a lot of pushback. And, you got me thinking. You said that a lot of the prior villains that Luffy has faced are build up to Imu. And I agree with that too. Like when I think about it, like you mentioned, maybe Imu can't go outside. And it's like, wait a minute, like we literally saw that plot line with Gecko Moria, where the Straw Hats couldn't go outside in the sun because they would like evaporate without a shadow. So it's like, yeah, like maybe Imu's the same way, but like reverse, right? Instead of the Straw Hats evaporating, it will be Imu. And I think that would be pretty cool, like a nice switch up. And then even with Enel, right? Enel lost to Luffy, then he went to the moon. I also think that has some meaning to it as well. Because it's like, yeah, like if we're saying Imu is darkness itself, well, the moon isn't necessarily dark. It's like, people equivalate like a lot of darkness powers to the moon. They associate it with it. So I think this is a really good theory. I think it cooked. I mean, personally, my own theory is that Imu is the moon god, like to equate the sun god.
It would make everything come full circle at this point. If Imu themselves aren't the moon god, then their devil fruit possibly is. So for our final crazy theory in this video, it goes into Shirahoshi. Like I said, why is she cutting up Shirahoshi's picture? So it's very possible that back in the day, Lily, the person that we know Imu is obsessed with, kind of, or that's the implication. Nefertari D. Lily, the ancestor of Vivi. She was like the Vivi of the Void Century, essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe jealous of Shirahoshi because they were friends or something, or had some kind of connection in some way, the original Poseidon. Because I guess we kind of see parallels to that when we were back at the Reverie, and Vivi and Rebecca like kind of become friends with Shirahoshi. They instantly connect. And Luna Bien Art, the guy who showed us this theory, was relating that to Japanese folklore, the Yaobikuni. Now, some of you like talking about this stuff, some of you don't, but just hear me out. So the Yaobikuni was a woman who ate this mysterious meat, and it was delicious. She didn't know what it was. However, it caused her to stop aging, and she started seeing all of her husbands die. They were dying. She wasn't aging. It made her sad. And this happened for like 800 years, specifically 800 years, which translates to 800 years ago in the Void Century. But it turns out that the Yaobikuni woman ate mermaid meat. That's what made her like immortal. So the conclusion to that was that Imu ate the original Poseidon, like Big Mom style, maybe even Big Mom eating the kids in Mother Caramel. I don't know, somehow is a parallel to that maybe, but that's possibly what led to Imu's immortality. I mean, I've been as strong on the stance that Imu had the perpetual youth surgery performed on them, and that's still possible, but maybe it's, I don't know, if you eat Poseidon, you become immortal. I don't know why Imu can bestow immortality on the others, like the Gorosei. That's the implication there. Other than that, I don't know why she hates Poseidon.
Yeah. I mean, another reason why Imu could just not like Poseidon is just because of the threat of Shirahoshi. But I do like this backstory, though. I don't think it would be super crazy. Like, I think when people think about Imu's age, right? Oh, they're 800, 900 years old. It's like, okay, Law's immortal youth surgery, like that's probably it. But like you said, like I would love if there was another option, something that we just didn't expect. Like, oh, they ate this person or they ate that person. And the thing with the mermaid princess, Poseidon, we don't know how that works. Like, what, like every couple hundreds of years, one is born and they're just like 10 times the size of a regular fishman and they can talk to sea kings. Like, that's already wacky. So if you say that Shirahoshi has like this meat that if you eat it, you become immortal, I don't think that'd be super insane. That sounds like a almost One Piece plot thing that could be introduced later.
That's why I'm not. That's why I'm not completely writing it off.
Yeah. I still think Law might be the right answer, but like you said, like you can't completely write this off.
Because like if you would have told me before we saw Big Mom's backstory, like, oh yeah, Big Mom ate Mother Caramel and that's how she got her ability, I was like, how does that work?
Yeah. And you said it yourself, like, well, I mean, even Lunipien, right? Like, Imu might just be this amalgamation of everything we've seen before from the villains combined. And hey, like this, like you said, this is Big Mom's part. We have the Gecko Moria, don't go outside. Enel with the natural weakness, going to the moon. And now we have Shirahoshi and Big Mom. Like, boom, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, but that's all I got for now. Imu, weak to sunlight, can't go outside. Sun God Nika, direct counter, and some kind of demon, dragon, devil fruit, maybe based off of something that actually exists. But so now that we've seen like the most we've ever seen of Imu at this point, I gotta talk to you about like what you think about all this stuff, because we've made several videos about Imu at this point for the last couple years, going over everything that we can, their origin, what they possibly truly are, who they truly are, how their powers work, how far it goes back. So now we have a lot more to go off of. My leading theory was that Imu was some kind of devil dragon thing, and you actually said, I don't remember how recent this was, maybe this last year, you thought possibly Imu was like a cartoonish type of devil thing. And it seems like that is closer to the truth now that we've seen what Imu's form kind of looks like when they take over Gunko and sprout the devil wings and the pitchfork and the horns and all that stuff. So let me hear some of your updated takes. Like, go back as far, Void Century or whatever, if you have to. I'm curious to hear what the updated Psy theories are.
Yeah, I'm still reeling from the fact that Imu does show like a lot of devilistic properties, right? You got the barbed tail, the pitchfork, the wings. Like, Imu's got it all. Like, the black magic, the book. I think even their nails like were a little bit longer, even in black. I was like, I don't know if that's like Gunko or Imu, but either way, like, they're full on demon, right? This is kind of what we talked about many times, which is funny, thinking back to all of the Imu theories we threw out there. Even though like some of them were wrong, it was still on the right track because they were all still demons at the end of the day. Like, we knew it was some sort of demon. We just couldn't really pinpoint which one. But I always fell back to Satan. I feel like that's just the most iconic one. And it kind of looks like that's what Imu is. But, now that we're here, now that we're like through the goalpost, I'm a little bit hesitant. I'm not going to lie. And the reason why is because the form we see here in Elbaf is not indicative of the silhouette we saw back at the Reverie. Like, at the Reverie, it was like this gelatinous blob slime monster, the size of the entire stairway to the empty throne. But here, they're really petite. So I think right now that Imu can transform into hundreds of different monsters and demons. I don't think there's going to be a limit to what Imu can and can't transform into in the demon realm, right? I don't think he can like turn into a leopard like Lucci, but I think he will be like the master, the god of demons. And the reason I say this too is because of the demons we see here in Elbaf, right? We see Dory, Brogy, a bunch of like random no-name, nobody cares about giants. They all look like Imu, which I think is a little bit odd. They're all taking on the same form. They all have the pitchforks. And I think that right there is why I believe that Imu is going to be different. This doesn't make sense in a lot of context, but for me at least, it feels weird if the king, Imu, or queen, people think it's a girl still. I think they're both pretty fine. It's weird if the king or queen resembled the peasants. The fact that Imu right now looks similar to Dory, Brogy, and the rest of these losers, it's like, okay, no, this isn't Imu's final form. I think because Imu's in this form right now, that's why the giants take on this form. And then Imu can transform into something else and then turn the giants into something else. I think that's how it's going to work. I think we're only witnessing a small glimpse of Imu's powers. And you could argue that maybe the reason why that is because we're in Gunko's body. Gunko can't exert everything that the real Imu could. Like, the real Imu could transform into this thing, but they're nerfed here in Elbaf. Like, I think that's pretty decent. As far as, like, why they have this power, I don't think a devil fruit fits. And the reason why is because Imu is a very special character. Out of the entire series, Oda could genuinely do anything with Imu. And you know why? It's because they're from the Void Century. Whatever Imu has does not have to be replicated or shown current day. So if you were to tell me that Imu has black magic, that's great. And guess what? It would not break the power scaling system. We're not going to start making theories like, oh, will Big Mom come back with black magic? Oh, Don Krieg is going to get black magic. oh, is Luffy gonna get black magic? Is that the next upgrade? That's not gonna be the case. You know, that's not gonna be the hot topic around town, because you could say easy solution. It existed in the Void Century. It doesn't exist today. So that is why I think Emu is the perfect blank slate character for Oda to do anything with. So I say it's black magic. I don't mind people saying it's devil fruit. Like I said, I'm really open-minded when it comes to a lot of theories. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I do think Emu is like the perfect character to warp and mold into whatever shape Oda wants. But that's just my hot take, rant, theory. I would love to hear what do you think, man? How do you feel about Emu now that we're here in Elbaf?
So you mentioned about whether they're a man or a woman. We talked about that a lot before. I've always kind of thought Emu was a woman for a couple of years, ever since Uteron's theory about it. But then, like, the more that we got to see about Emu, and especially in the anime with the voice and the slenderness of them, and now that they've taken over Gunko, it makes me really think that Emu is a woman. Because, like, why Gunko? Like, I'm sure that's like why. Yeah, I'm sure that's like why Gunko is a thing, because maybe they have something special where Emu can take them over or whatever. But just the fact that it's a woman makes me think that Emu is a woman too. And we talked about how maybe Emu inherently is a man, but then some kind of shenanigans went on with maybe Law's devil fruit, and they took over Lily, Vivi's ancestor, one of the Nefertaris from back in the day. But it is a possibility for sure. As for like the magic aspect of Emu, I think that's extremely plausible, because Emu's just doing way too much for it to be a devil fruit. Even a mythical Zoan. Like mythical Zoans, yeah, of course, they have like a couple abilities. They stretch the laws of devil fruits, which is fine. But this just seems like way too much. And it's very different from just what typical devil fruit powers would be anyway. So what my theory was, and this is honestly just like an organic one, or at least I think it's organic, just from me looking at the mural on the tree. So if you look on the right side, which is implied to be before the Void Century, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but there's like a person that's standing on something with a crown. It kind of resembles Emu, kind of, because of the crown. It's very Emu-like. So it's like, is that Emu, or is that like one of the Neuronas from before? Because that's Emu's name, Emu, whatever, Neurona. And then we see that like dragon thing above them. And I'm thinking like that dragon thing might be the origin of this power or this magic or something. And I only say that because like when we see the left side of the panel, which is like the Void Century War, suddenly it's implied to be like Emu, which resembles the dragon on the right, but kind of like in a hybrid form. And that looks like what we saw at the Reverie. I mean, it didn't have the wings at the Reverie, but it had that overall shape and size to it because it's freaking huge. Like, Emu on the left side of that Void Century War is like as big as everyone fighting against it, even bigger. So that lines up with the Reverie. But what Emu is doing with Gunko doesn't. Looks different. And like you said, maybe it's because he's taking over Gunko's body, very limited in their power output. So that's where I'm at with it right now. It's probably just like an ancient power that came even before the devil fruit, some kind of like mythical creature that existed, possibly like that dragon demon devil thing that also existed with maybe that serpent that may or may not existed. These were just things that were back in the day. And then how devil fruits came about, I still don't know. Something to do with the gods. And then another thing that we talked about was, this was like a couple weeks ago, how Emu possibly might not be able to leave Mary Joie because of some kind of weakness that they have, like maybe to sunlight. The fact that they're taking over Gunko makes me think that maybe they can't leave Mary Joie, because why wouldn't they just teleport there like the Gorosei did, or the Holy Knights or whatever, right?
Yeah. And then not just that, but like, why not go outside and, quell the war at your doorstep too? People are saying, oh, but, Emu's not supposed to exist, so he can't do that. But I'm like, okay, but here's a better one. Everybody who's attacking Marie Joie shouldn't exist by tomorrow. Like, that is the simplest solution. Like, oh, you don't want them to know about Emu? Well, great, just kill them. Like, they're criminals. They're attacking your homeland, right? So yeah, the whole thing with Emu not being able to go into the sun, I think it's a fun theory. But as far as what you said, I really enjoyed it. I do like the idea of Emu being contracted or combining or, getting the powers of a dragon, because it goes back to their namesake, right? The celestial dragons. Why are they named that? I guarantee you there's going to be a really good reason as to why they're named that. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's because maybe there was a dragon in the past that worked with the 20 kings and queens that took down Joy Boy. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. And, you know, Oda has played around with real dragons a lot. Like Oda, guys, before Oda did One Piece with, you know, pirates and stuff, Oda was a giant medieval night sucker. My God, he loved them. You know, one of the original concepts for One Piece, the story he was going to make, was about, guess what? I think Luffy was called Land. It was like a Land and the 10 Knights and the Dragon. It's like, yeah, like Oda always wanted to have like real dragons in the series. You could argue One Piece already has that, right? With the Punk Hazard dragon, but that's artificial. That's an artificial dragon. So I do think that if we were to go back like 900 years ago, we will see genuine dragons flying around. And not just, by the way, not just Punk Hazard. Think about monsters, right? The Ryuma origin story. There was a dragon, a real dragon there. And then you go back even further, but there was a little filler arc where we met the Millennium Dragons from hundreds of years ago, and they just exist on this random island. And like this little girl could like talk to the dragons and stuff. It was so weird. It was a really bad filler arc, but it was interesting because it's like, wait, this is early Oda's idea, you know? Like, what was he cooking with this? But yeah, I totally think that we will see real dragons in the past. If they gave Imu and the 20 kings and queens powers to fight Joy Boy, wouldn't be shocked. And as far as like the person on the mural being Imu, the one that's standing on top of Noah's Ark, I don't think it has to be them, simply because when we got that panel of Joy Boy fighting the kings and queens, we saw that all the kings and queens had the same three-pointed crown. So it could genuinely be anybody. It could even be Lily, for all we know. I bet Lily also had the same. Oh yeah, I think Lily did have the same crown too, which is weird. Like imagine like you and the boys you're like, hey, let's all wear the same hat today, guys. Whoa, why? You know, why are we doing this?
Hey, you want to be in the club or not?
yeah, it's the same three-pointed crown. Like, wait, why? Come on, get something.
It's
better.
Cool. Yeah, no, you raised a great point. That's it doesn't have to be Imu. That's what I was saying. Like, could be an ancestor, or I don't know. It just, there was only so much Oda can convey on that mural, you know. And I think a lot of the things he wants you to be like, this is this, and then some things are more ambiguous than the others, I guess. But
all right, guys, got another collab today, another theory going over with my boy Sai. This one's really juicy because it's going all the way back to 1998. Many of you weren't even remotely born yet, which is crazy. Oda had been cooking this up this whole time. We're going to be going off of a cover story from chapter 59, and it features Richie, the lion from Buggy's crew. I totally forgot his name. I looked it up before this video and I was refreshed. Richie, I should have remembered that from the live action of One Piece, right? Richie's in the live action on Netflix.
I think he is. I don't even remember the live action. It feels like a fever dream.
Yeah, I actually looking forward to season 2. But anyway, on the cover of chapter 59, we see Richie like sleeping, and he's having like this dream as he's fighting two people, which I forget their names, but I'm sure you guys in the comments will let me know. Don't say it's Sai. Let them say the name of the
my lips were quivering.
Of the two buggy guys. Anyway, in the dream, we see Richie, and he has like this sword, shield, and cape, and he's going against this dragonic monster. Now, if we go all the way to chapter 1138, right? That was the big mural chapter. Yeah. It looks like what we see in that mural. We see what is implied to be Nika or Joy Boy, maybe one and the same, going against this creature-like thing. So I'll just put it out there. Was this foreshadowing this whole time? Was this always what the beginning and end of One Piece was? And I say beginning because this is, you know, the beginning of what led to the story that we're following now. And this very likely could be the end as well.
I think so. When it comes to Oda, he's always been very consistent. Obviously, his ideas have changed. He's changed a lot of details, but Oda has had this obsession with somebody defeating a dragon. That has always been the prerogative. Go back to Monsters, right? Monsters with the Ryuma one-shot. It just recently got its anime adaptation, I think like last year. But Oda's had a fascination with characters defeating a dragon and saving the day. right? We've seen that with monsters. We see that here where we have the celestial dragons. We see with Richie where he's like a pirate. He has the cape on and he's going off to fight this dragon. And then, of course, we also had another story with Oda, or like a scrapped one, and Oda titled it A Tale of a Boy and a Dragon. And there you see Luffy, you see Nami, you see Shanks, and you see this really ugly looking dragon as well. I'll send you the image. And yeah, like Oda has always had this fascination. So I think this is, again, it's just another, not even foreshadowing, but it's just Oda like tripling down on this idea that we got to take down that Western dragon, man. I do agree, though. I think it does look like the monster in the mural. And even more so now than ever, like I do think Imu, or at least the celestial dragons, have a real life dragon in their army. Like we are going to see one of those bad boys show up and they're going to wreak havoc. And I really like, so you have two cover pages here. One where Richie is sleeping, and then the other one where he's sleeping, but he's like defeating the two characters who shall remain nameless for your sake. And I think that's really meaningful as well, because if we assume that the lion is Luffy, which Oda has put out a lot of Luffy lion symbology out there, right? Lions typically represent the sun because of their stupid mane. So yeah, like he could be the sun god. I think this is a perfect representation of Luffy because Luffy has no idea what the hell's going on, right? Luffy does not know about the world government. He does not know about the Void Century. He does not know about anything. And he just shows up and he beats everybody. And that's essentially what's going on in this cover page, right? These two characters who are not named are fighting. And then that is when Richie shows up and just punches them both without even knowing like why they're fighting. He's still sleeping. And I think that is very reminiscent of Luffy, right? He doesn't know what Imu is. He doesn't know anything about the Gorosei. And he's just packing them up left and right.
Also, in this cover page is a half moon at the top.
Yes.
And that goes into the mural. The half moon had a dream, or I'm paraphrasing, but you know, it said something like that. The half moon dreamed, and then the moon dreamed. Half moon, moon, obviously up for debate what that means. There could be like two Ds, two versions of the Ds, you know, Blackbeard, Luffy, whatever. There could have been like a Joy Boy and then an anti-Joy Boy or whatever. Rocks, Roger. Maybe that's something that it has to do with that. Even though they're not really associated with the moon, but it's, I don't know, maybe it could be the opposite. Maybe there's, you know, the celestial dragons are the moon and then there's something else analogous to that. I don't know. But it still, I think, ties into that. Oh, yeah. And there's also fire around Richie in his dream here with this dragon in the back. Maybe that has something to do with either what was going on back in the day with the Mother Flame or the ancient power source, or it could be tied into, like you said, I always assumed that Imu themselves were the dragon, but if that's not the case, they have like their own dragon or something like that. But still, pretty fascinating that it's like still connecting here, and it's like the sword and the shield. Does that mean that like Luffy's gonna get that, or is he just gonna stay straight fists?
It's funny because like Luffy has had a weird obsession with knights and armor and swords even, right? In Wano, he picked up one of the swords from like Sukiyaki's house, and he just ran around with it. He didn't know how to use it.
Yeah, he like punched somebody with it.
Yeah, but he still liked swords. And then in Thriller Bark, he loved armor, right? He put on the armor at Thriller Bark, despite not knowing how to use it or, you know, properly putting it on. So I think Luffy could very well get a sword and a shield. Will he use it, though? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like a, you know, people are saying it could be like, oh, Zoro's the sword and Sanji's the shield, which I don't think that's bad either. I think that'd be pretty cool. But, you know, building off of what you said a minute ago, I do think the Celestial Dragons will be the full moon people. Because if we're saying the D-Clan is the half moon, right? It looks like the half moon. I think the Celestial Dragon hoof, which is like, what, a circle in the 3 points or 4 points. The middle is just a circle, which would be the full moon. So I think they hit it in that symbol.
Yeah, because I guess, yeah, the half moon is a D, if you really want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, and I never really talked to you actually yet about the mural itself, but when you saw it for the first time, did you have that takeaway that the big black dragonic demonic thing is Imu, or at least in the second half of it, like when we see Nika, Joy Boy, like fighting against it, I'm pretty sure that is Imu, but like the one before that, the one that's like on top of the tree turning its head, I don't know what to make of that. Like, was that also Imu, or was that something before Imu that led to Imu making the fruit, maybe.
I think it could both be an extension of Emu. Like, thinking back to Film Red, which an interesting thing about Film Red is that the person who made it, obviously Oda was there, but the guy who directed it and wrote all the key notes for it, he knows the ending of One Piece. He knows what the One Piece is, the final fight and everything. He's Oda's right-hand man. And it's like, okay, like, we got this guy coming in, he knows everything, and he decided to introduce this demonic monster out of nowhere. I don't know if you watch Film Red, but there's like this crazy demon.
Yeah, Musica something, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if Emu's going to have a similar ability where Emu is this big, powerful guy, but he also has an actual demon right beside him. How does he summon it? I don't know. People might not like that because people are very lukewarm about Film Red. But, when it comes to the canon story, I have more faith in that. So I think it could just be two different things, like Emu on one end and then big, scary dragon monster that Emu controls on the other end.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, that very likely could be a thing as well. Because I'm still just, I guess everyone is unsure about what the timeline of the two things, what led to it. But yeah, I think in the end, to wrap this video up, this is for sure foreshadowing of what was in the past and what is to come. Just not literally, like Luffy will face Emu in the end, whether they have a sword and shield or not. And then Emu in one way or another will be this big dragonic, demonic entity thing. And that, I guess, will be one of the last fights, if not the last one, depending on what happens with Blackbeard.
Yeah, Blackbeard's such a weird character to squeeze in there, bro.
Exactly.
Where does he fit?
Ideally, I would like them both to fight Emu, and then they defeat her, and then it's like, now let's fight each other over the throne. But I guess that's like Naruto.
I like that. No, I think that's why I do like it. It's like, yeah, let's fight together, then now we fight, right? And it makes sense, like, Blackbeard is a D-Clan member. Like, if Blackbeard helps fight Emu, like, it makes sense, but it's just weird thinking of the team up.
But that's, I mean, Goku and Frieza, they've teamed up.
Yeah. Hey, shout-outs.
Yeah.
Goku and Frieza.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's it for this one, guys. So let me know what you thought about this in the comments, and let me know what the name of Buggy's left and right-hand men are. I forget even to this day, but
no, they're important. No,
they're so important, man. I mean, their cross skill is integral. Really. They're integral to them. But anyway, they are Yonko commanders. I don't know. They're Yonko something. Yeah, check out Sai's channel. Link in the description. And yeah, let me know in the comments again. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.